I think there might be an aspect in regards to how dinosaurs sounded that we might have gotten wrong. Hear me out, let me cook. Jurassic Park gave us dinosaurs that roared and bellowed, but science says that it's more likely that they honked and screeched like modern day birds. But let me paint a picture for you. Let's say in the next 500 years, humanity figures out how to tap into a wormhole in order to go back into the past. Think of Terra Nova. So we tap into this wormhole. It takes us back almost 200 million years, right into the middle of the reign of dinosaurs. We send scientists, soldiers, and civilians back into the past to colonize and steal resources because that's what humanity does. Everything does well for a few months. We figured out how to keep the dinosaurs at bay, we know how to make them stay away from the camps, etc. But one day an expedition goes missing. So what do? Obviously, we send another expedition to find that expedition. We follow those tracks deep into the forest, and we find the convoy from the last expedition just abandoned. It looked like they had a skirmish. Now, they are nowhere to be seen, but the convoy looks perfectly fine. It looks like they got out of it themselves and went exploring on foot. And so this latest expedition, obviously, they get out to investigate. They comb the area, almost several hundred meters of a radius, trying to find anything that would point them in the direction that the people went, and they find nothing, and hours go by, and suddenly in the distance they hear, "Help! Help!" Obviously, Expedition 2 is like, what? So they go and they start investigating the noise of someone calling for help. "Help! Help!" As they get closer, it goes from, "Help!" to, "Who's there? Who's there?" They're getting closer, and the cries are getting louder, and they're getting louder, and it goes from "Help! Who's there? Help! Who's there?" to, "Stop! No, don't! Stop! No, don't! Help! Stop! No, don't!" Obviously, Expedition 2 is hearing these cries, and they're yelling back, "Are you okay? Do you need any help? Hello?" Cries return back, "Hello? Are you okay? Do you need help? Help? Help?" And they're getting closer and closer, and they suddenly stumble into a nest. Eggs piled on eggs, and human remains laid about. And as they stumble into the nest, the cries suddenly stop, and from movement in the bushes rises a 9-foot Dilophosaurus, flanked by several other Dilophosaurus, each one as tall as the first, and they all are crying, "Help! Help! Help!" At the second expedition, the last thing that Expedition 2 hears is, "Oh God!" But none of them spoke at all. I spooked myself with dinosaurs. I just spooked myself with dinosaurs. I think that might be the scariest part on the concept of dinosaur mimics that nobody wants to talk about. Think about it. The dinosaurs in my story were repeating the last words of the prey that they were hunting. And they were probably mimicking words that were most likely said the most. But how did these dinosaurs get the first expedition to willingly leave their cars? Here's a story for you. Dr. Manta Ray, the leading scientist of this expedition, had come up with a theory that there is a plant, a prehistoric plant that has the ability to cure just about any ailment and reverse the effects of cancer. So he takes an expedition of himself and about 7 other people. The convoy consists of 2 vehicles, and they drive into the forest looking for this prehistoric plant. About 30 miles out from the walls of home base is where they see something strange in the distance. They drive their convoy as close as they can to this strange thing, and eventually they have to park and get out, and they go investigate. What caught their attention was the bright, reflective screen of a solar panel. Now, there had been reports of solar panels being damaged or going missing from the solar farms, because that's how they got their main source of energy, but they could be easily replaced. This, being out here in the middle of nowhere, was alarming. As they're investigating this random solar panel that just happens to be in the middle of the woods, they hear, "Hey you! Hey you!" Now, Dr. Manta Ray believes that these are deserters who are calling out to them, people who have left the compound because they didn't want to contribute anymore. So he and all of the soldiers that are with him, they go searching, because if they find this random solar panel, they're probably going to find other equipment that was stolen. So they're hunting for these deserters. All the while they're hearing, Hey you! Hey you! In the distance. The first soldier calls out, Hello? Who's there? And he gets the response, Hey you! Who's there? Hey you! Hello? And then the sounds are getting louder, as if it's leading somewhere, and it's not just, Hey you! And then the calls and repeats that are happening, it's also adding, Come here! Come here! Dr. Manta Ray and his entire expedition team stumble into a nest to find that it is filled with nothing but eggs and what looks to be bright, silvery, shiny objects that were stolen from around the outskirts of the compound. Pieces of solar panels, pieces of rebar, pieces of just anything that looks like it could be shiny, anything that looks like it could be attractive to certain things. That's when they hear, What are you doing? What are you doing? And they turn and they see the 9-foot Dilophosaurus coming into the nest, towering over them. That's when Dr. Manta Ray realizes their entire compound is being stalked, not by one, but probably by multiple species that have the ability to mimic human sounds. And just as he realizes, he says, Oh God. And just as Dr. Manta Ray gets those words out of his mouth, 8 other Dilophosaurs descend from the trees, each as large and as vocal as the first, crashing into the entire expedition team, bringing them down to the ground. And that's when Dilophosaurs learned about the vocalization of, Help! No, don't! Help! No, don't! Ooh, it's such a spooky concept. It's such, like I'm spooking myself out for dinosaurs over here. That came through that wormhole in the third wave, right when they were setting up the command posts, when they started building the walls and all that. Like, I remember being told about this mission some 3 years ago, after y'all first found that wormhole in that cave. Look, I was on the environmental track back in undergrad, so say what you will about it being an alternate timeline and how it's not gonna affect our future, I have my doubts. But yeah, I was in that third convoy when we were trying to find Dr. Manta Ray and the other people. They just left their trucks. They just left their trucks in the middle of this clearing. We decided to try to comb the area, see what we could find, and then I was the first one to hear it. I know I was the first one to hear it because I was the first one to go back to the trucks, and I told everybody to go back to the trucks too. What I hear? Words. Voices. Talking. Bunch of people from the group wanted to go find the voices, see if they were okay, but I had to tell them, don't you go in them woods. Don't you go in them woods. But the rest of them, they didn't listen. They were bound and determined to find Dr. Manta Ray, but I knew he got taken. Growing up in southern Appalachia, you learn quickly not to go follow those voices, not to go wandering out at night. They're real, alright. Sometimes you hear them laughing just beyond the tree line, just out of sight, and that's what this reminded me of. You could hear them, and it sounded just not right, just not right. It sounded like somebody was yelling for help, but it didn't sound right. It didn't sound right. I told Commander Bobby that, we needed to go. We need to get back to the truck, we need to get back to the compound. At the very least, we need to get a fucking tank. Commander Bobby didn't want to listen. He told me to go looking. I planted my feet firm. I heard his screams. They all followed the words, they all followed the calls. And in the end, they were screaming. I tried to radio him. I tried to get him to respond. But nothing. I made us wait in the truck for half a day. They never came back. And I wasn't about to go take that truck into the middle of the forest only for it to careen down a mountainside somewhere. So we waited. We waited, and after the screams were gone for a few hours, we heard those calls again. Those calls for help. And then there's a couple hey yous. And a couple of what are you doing? It was weird. And then I saw him creeping out from this brush. Almost like he was blending in. This big bitch, I swear. Looked like he was 8, 9 foot tall. Almost like he was blending in like some kind of chameleon. I thought these ones just fished. That's what the fossil record indicated, is that they just fished. He was big. You don't realize how big they are until they're right there, and he was big. Maybe 700, 800, 900 pounds. Nothing but lean muscle. I knew what he was when he stepped out. He got that big double ridge on the top of his head. My kids, they play with those dino movie toys, so I recognized the motherfucker. Dilophosaurus. I gunned it. I turned that truck on and I gunned it. I got out of there as fast as I could, as fast as it would carry us. You paid me to do a job, not to be eaten alive. Send me back through the wormhole. Should have never come here. We should have never come here. After fleeing from the gigantic Dilophosaurus, Brandy Sue made it back to base, and the first thing she did was report to her superiors what happened. And then she tried to breach the gate to go home. The wormhole, also known as the gate, was heavily guarded, located deep within the cave system below home base. Brandy Sue tried to force her way through the barricades and guards in order to get back to her timeline, but she was stopped immediately and detained. Brandy Sue tried to warn people, tried to explain that the longer that they stayed in this timeline, the more at risk they were. Of course, the scientific heads over the project thought it was absolutely amazing to consider of dinosaurs that could mimic human speech. Of course they wanted to find one of these things, capture it, and study it. Colonel Lazarus was tasked with capturing a live mimicking Dilophosaurus, as well as bringing back any of the equipment that was left behind. The rescue mission had ceased, replaced with a fool's errand, but Colonel Lazarus, he heeded Brandy Sue, and he brought a tank this time.
You want to do this here? Alright, let's do it. Well, the good news is we found him. We found Dr. Manta Ray and everybody else. But the bad news is it was just the parts that the dinos didn't like. We came barreling through in that tank. I told you it was a good idea. I told you it was a good idea. We came barreling through in that tank. And the moment I realized that we were about to run over somebody's leg, I said, stop. That's when we found the nest. Or, I guess what was left of the nest. It was empty, deserted. Just the remains of our people and nothing else. No giant Dilophosaurus, no eggs. The way Brandy Sue was explaining it, it was like they were luring people to the nest, and strangely enough, 2 of the body cams were still active. There must have been 9 or 10 different adults that I saw in the different body cam footages, but they weren't eating them. No, they lured people into those nests not to eat them, but to prepare for their young, which were about to hatch. They wanted to make sure their young could eat. Those atomic batteries last forever, and I watched on both of Private Ames and Private Richter's footage, just the eggs hatching, and how they were led to the bodies, and how they just started eating. We salvaged what we could, brought back what dog tags we could. But I realized too that if we stayed long enough, we might start hearing those voices as well. They were stealing our equipment. Solar panels, glass panes, pipes, anything that they could use to fortify their nest. The western solar farms have been reporting damage and missing pieces. I didn't expect it to be of this kind of caliber. No, I didn't bring one back. What kind of moron question is that? They're gone. You're more worried about dinosaurs than the loss of human life. What's wrong with you? Now are we done here? I need to go assess the situation with Brandy Sue. She was detained trying to get past the gate. Somebody's gonna have to tell her soon that we... Oh no.
What the hell is that? Hey, this is Marco over at the Southern Watchtower. Somebody get a hold of Director Rand. There's a big one. It looks like it's pacing back and forth on the other side of the electric fence like it's looking for something, right? It's probably nothing. It's probably nothing to be concerned about. It probably just got too close, got zapped, and it's confused, and... Wait. It's picking something up. What? Oh, no. Guys, it's using the branch to test the fence. It's using this... I didn't know it could do that! It's just picking it up and throwing it at the fence to figure out where the weaknesses are, or to see if it can dislodge it. Does anybody else have eyes on it? What even is it? An Allosaurus? Hey, this is Marco over at the Southern Watchtower. Somebody get a hold of Director Rand. There's a big one. Members of the board, commanding officers, gentlemen, and gentle lady. You knew what you signed up for when you came through that wormhole. You knew exactly the stakes, and you knew what was going to happen the moment your foot crossed into this world.
Director Rand, you didn't tell us the dinosaurs could talk. You gave us some crackpot speech on how this is untapped potential. And now suddenly the dinosaurs are smart.
Dumb mother. Couple dozen soldiers fallen victim to a lizard does not mean it is intelligent. It means they were stupid.
Fine, they were stupid, but they still cost money. Speaking of money, what about all of our investments? We can't even send the drones into the sky, because every time we do, the stupid pterodactyls keep knocking them down.
Galdi! You are 200 million years into the past on an alien timeline. What did you expect to happen? There are monsters outside, and you're too busy thinking about making a buck off of a few cut trees.
This is your operation! You convinced the board to come here! You convinced civilians to come here!
How did you even get the president and the council to back you on this? The Neo-Republic government is wasting so many resources on your dinosaur fetish. Because I've already done this. Twice. And it's not like any of you can go back and do anything. Because you can't even... Sir! Marco at the Southern Watchtower has reported a large bipedal carnivore testing the fences. That's overlooking the hydroponic farm. Put video feed up on the screen. Oh, I know you. You're Allosaurus. That means my theory was correct. Oh, Dr. Manta Ray, you thought you could prove me wrong with that stupid guise of looking for some stupid plant. Oh, I wish you were still alive right now so I could laugh at your face. Gentlemen and gentle lady, get down to the bunker if you want to see tomorrow. Commanders, get to your posts.
And what about you? What are you gonna do?
What am I gonna do? My goddamn job.
Hello? Let me out of here. This world ain't safe. The longer we stay here, we're gonna be in trouble. We need to get back to our time because it's just gonna get worse. Oh, I don't like that.
Negative, sir. I do not copy. What do you want me to do? No, if I send one of those drones out, the pterodactyls will attack it. Private, prep one of the drones. Director Rand will be taking control of it. He said to arm it, too. With an atom cap.
Oh, look at you in all your glory. You don't belong on this timeline, do you? No, you're about 50 million years too early.
Alright, there it goes. All above ground personnel evacuate into bunkers or caves now. Drop what you're doing and go. An atom cap is imminent.
You just proved that my theory was the correct one. Pterodactyls imminent. Doesn't take long for them to see these drones. That's fine. I just gotta get close enough for the atom cap to work. And boop. Director Rand ordered the drone to be launched, knowing that the odds of success were minimal, if any. He himself flew it at the Allosaurus, armed with the atom cap. Ever since Rand Corporation, backed by Neo-Republic's military, entered through that gate, there was one thing they could not do, and that was get any coverage in the sky. They knew they could protect themselves from the ground, but the moment they launched any drones into the sky, they were immediately attacked by pterodactyls, which were nesting in the area. Drone's propeller blades, which allowed it to take off and zoom through the sky, emits a very high-frequency sound that attracted the pterodactyls, and the pterodactyls would immediately launch themselves at the drones and take them down, thinking that they were either prey or they were threatening the pterodactyl's space. So when Director Rand launched that drone to take down the Allosaurus, he knew he had a very, very small window to get that drone to the dinosaur. But now, how did Director Rand, the head of Rand Corporation, get his hands on atom caps? It's because of two reasons. The first is that Director Rand had a gift of manipulation. He was able to get the president of Neo Republic to approve him being able to carry those through the gate with him. And two, he invented the atom cap. You see, the atom cap was first discovered in 2290, over 200 years before the wormhole was discovered. The concept of the atom cap was simple. Essentially, when triggered, a dome-like structure would extend out from the source of the atom cap, and then from there, anything caught within the set area of the dome is instantly vaporized down to the atom without causing any damage to structure or property. This proposed nuclear weapon was considered fictional for many years because the idea of causing a massive loss of life without causing any damage to property was considered impossible, until Rand Corporation bought the concept and the first designed patents. Director Rand worked tirelessly for many years to get this weapon to work. He brought countless scientists onto the project to somehow figure out how to make this a reality, and that was how he met Dr. Manta Ray, and how Manta Ray actually became part of Rand Corporation. And one day it worked. The Neo Republic used it on a very well-known gang in the middle of what used to be known as New York City. The dome that the atom cap created was so large that it engulfed more than half of the city, and all life was lost immediately, but every single structure, every single inorganic material still remained. When Rand Corporation, along with the Neo Republic military, marched through the wormhole, they carried with them 10 atom caps. They also brought with them knowledge on how to escape the atom cap's potency, which mostly involved bunkers and remaining within cave systems. So when Colonel Lazarus announced that the atom cap was imminent, the entire base fled to the bunkers or the caves immediately. The exception being 3 people: Brandy Sue, Colonel Lazarus, and Director Rand himself, who sat in his office knowing he would be perfectly fine because he invented a solution that would dissipate the atom cap's actual potency. So when he controlled that drone going straight toward the Allosaurus, he was perfectly comfortable knowing he would be safe. Director Rand knew he had seconds before the pterodactyls would bring the drone down, so he immediately fired the atom cap. But what he didn't expect was how Allosaurus would respond. In that split second, before Rand could even pull the trigger, Allosaurus had opened its mighty jaws. But it wasn't a roar that came out of Allosaurus's mouth. It was a high-pitched frequency so loud that it literally caused windows in the complex to shatter. Frequency was so loud that it pierced through the ground into the bunkers, causing multiple people to start convulsing on the ground, unable to move. The drone stalled, and the signal to launch the atom cap was never received. It was a blip in that moment, and just as Rand hit that button, he dropped the controller as his hands reached up to his ears in pain because of this massive, high-pitched frequency that felt like it was destroying his brain. Pterodactyls finally caught up to the drone, and they tackled it to the earth, ripping it to shreds with their beaks and their claws. Allosaurus didn't put his attention on the downed drone. Instead, his attention was on the soldiers running away, the civilians leaving their posts. People were trying to ensure that he wasn't going to get past the fence, and now they were all gone, and he realized something was wrong. The frequency finally dissipated. Allosaurus gave one huff in the air, turned, and retreated, knowing that something bad was about to happen. Rand stood back up, absolutely annoyed that he was brought to his knees by what was essentially a bird call. He grabbed the controller and he pressed that trigger one more time. The pterodactyls were instantly vaporized, and a giant dome of blue began to expand outward from the remains of the drone. It spread like a wall of death, going in every direction, spreading almost a mile before finally beginning to slow. Finally, the blue light dissipated, and anything that was caught within it was dust. When Rand was finally able to check the feed on his monitors to see if he was able to successfully dispatch the Allosaurus, he was happy to see that it was completely gone. But what Rand didn't see while he was on his knees cradling his head from the noise the Allosaurus made, the Allosaurus had escaped, able to outrun the dome before it could get him. Oh hell no, this is what the Neo-Soviets did to my great-great-great-great-granduncle. Trapped him in a room with his thoughts. Let the debilitating depression take him out. That's not how I'm gonna go. It's a good thing I got this new bionic arm. Think we got it.
Brandy Sue, we need to... Did you just open this door on your own?
No. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. Why are you even here, Lazarus?
Director Rand is launching an atom cap. We need to get out of here now.
Oh hell, an atom cap? What's he using it on? It's for population control.
An Allosaurus. One that actually is bigger than the ones we've seen projected in the fossil record.
An Allosaurus? That's 75 million years too early.
You're not wrong, but we don't have time for this. We can figure the what the fuck out when we're safe. Now move, soldier!
Brandy Sue and Colonel Lazarus sprint out of the detention center, aiming for the nearest bunker entrance they can get to. Just as they are within sight of the bunker door, the atom cap detonates. The initial shockwave of the atom cap passes over Brandy Sue and Colonel Lazarus, and luckily they are not knocked off their feet. In their sprint, Brandy Sue takes a chance to check over her shoulder to gauge where the atom cap was detonated, and to her horror, it was close enough that she could see the wall of blue from the dome speeding toward her and Colonel Lazarus. Colonel Lazarus slams into the bunker door, and he's unable to turn the latch in order to get it open. He starts banging madly and wildly against the steel frame. Colonel Lazarus is unable to get the vault-style handle of the door to turn. It is locked in place. He looks over to see the keypad that would normally operate the door being without power. No electricity was running to it because of the Allosaurus testing the fences. Brandy Sue pushes Colonel Lazarus out of the way and presses her bionic hand to the keypad. She sets the tasing function on her palm to high and jolts the keypad with as much electricity as her batteries and her arms can hold. Keypad blinks back to life. Brandy Sue steps out of the way, and Colonel Lazarus plugs in the emergency code to get the door open. The vault-style handle of the door finally turns, and the door begins to open automatically, just as the blue hue of the atom cap shines against their backs. As soon as the door was wide enough for Brandy Sue and Colonel Lazarus to squeeze through, they pushed through into safety, and Colonel Lazarus slammed his fist down on the emergency stop and reverse button. The door screeched to a halt, and then slowly began to close on its own. Just as the seal of the bunker door reconnected, the blue light of the atom cap hit the bunker walls. Brandy Sue and Colonel Lazarus both exhaled simultaneously, breathing a sigh of relief that they escaped the horror of the atom cap. Radiation levels are finally passable. I think they've waited long enough. Let's start restoring power. Auxiliary systems. Check. Fences. Check. Water filtration. Check. Hydroponic farm. Oh no. Well, we do have reserves. They'll just have to last us until we can get that repaired. Moving on. Bunker doors. I'm gonna do just these 5. Chew on that, Galdi. It just doesn't make any sense. All of the data that we've collected shows that we're about 185, if not 190 million years. The flora, the fauna, the sediment records, the fact that I saw a Dilophosaurus, and then an Allosaurus comes out of the woods. What is this, Lazarus? Where the fuck are we?
Brandy, there's only so much that I can tell you.
Because you're hiding shit. Lazarus, Jesus Christ, after everything we went through together, you're gonna pull this rank over me.
Whoa. I'm not hiding anything. I can't tell you things that I don't know. Director Rand is literally keeping this all so close to the chest, he's not trusting anyone.
Then we need to leave. We need to evacuate. We need to get out of here. We need to go back to our timeline.
Brandy Sue, we can't. We can't leave. We can't go back to our timeline.
Is it because of this bullshit mission? Lazarus, people have died. People have died and they're gonna keep dying. We need to go back. We need to go back now.
Brandy, you're not listening. This trip was one way. That wormhole is one way. You cannot go back through. We've tried. We have tried.
One way. What was the point of coming here? Why did you doom us? Why did you all doom us?
Brandy, I have been here since the beginning, and I couldn't get a message back, obviously. How could I warn people that this was a death sentence?
Then you condemned us. Lazarus, you, all the other commanding officers, Director Rand and the rest of the board of directors, you all have condemned us.
Not all hope's lost. There is another way out of this. Director Rand has been through the wormhole before. Twice. He has proof. He has video of him coming through and navigating for days with a very small team. Twice. And finding the exit.
Lazarus, that is insane. You're saying that Director Rand came through the wormhole before, not once but twice, just to test things out and see what would happen, and then he found an alternative exit? Like another one-way ticket that goes back to our timeline? Well, that wouldn't even make this a timeline. That wouldn't make this an alternative timeline. Lazarus, this isn't an alternative timeline.
Not that it was much of a secret, there were a lot of theories being floated around between Dr. Manta Ray and Director Rand. Not that it matters now because... Oh, power's coming back on. The bunker doors are opening.
And restore camera feed. There we go. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Gone. Completely gone. I love atom caps. What's that? Zoom in. Zoom in. Who are you? And where did you come from? Oh, United States, you come up with such amazing toys. Oh, my apologies, friend. You don't call it the United States anymore. The United Republic now. Different name, same place, same sycophants running it. I'll give you props for telling me the truth, but you lose points for folding quickly under pressure.
You said you'd let me go. You said you'd let me go.
Yes, I did promise you that, didn't I? And I do keep my word. Untie him. You're free to go. No one will stop you. I suggest you start running. Start running and don't look back. Help! Hey, you! Help! Help! Hey! Hey, you! Help! Calls for attention and for help were coming from the line of trees that were within sight of the hydroponic farm. Even though the workers and the soldiers were protected by the electric fence, it did not stop those certain monsters out there from trying to get their attention and lure them away. At the beginning, when those voices started calling from the woods, "Help! Hey, you! Stop! Help!" Certain workers did look up to see what was wrong, but luckily Brandy Sue was assigned as the head over that entire construction project to get the hydroponic farm to work again. And every time a worker or a soldier stopped what they were doing to see where these calls of help were coming from, Brandy Sue would clap and say, "Ignore it! Nothing's out there that you need to know about. Ignore it." At night, the watchtower started shining large spotlights onto the forest to see if they could see anything trying to come through, and on rare occasions they would see red reflecting back at them from the many eyes of different dinosaurs that were staring at them from the brush. Slowly, the calls for help began to become more frequent and more loud, as if in desperation to get the attention of the people who were safe within inside those fences. And that's when Rand decided if they're not going to take a hint, he would force them to take a hint. Up until that moment, the entire project was actually designed to have very minimal presence in order to not attract large predators, but after the Allosaurus event, Director Rand argued that the only way to be safe was to expand the perimeter up to 3 miles. And Director Rand decided the only way he could be sure that they would be safe, at least in 3 miles in every direction, was to burn it all to the ground. And so began the deforestation. It started in the daylight. After they wiped out as many dinosaurs as they could find close to the tree line, they chopped down as many trees within sight of the settlement before they set fire to the remainder of the forests. But the smoke was so bad that it virtually blotted out the sun for weeks. It was nighttime for this entire camp for weeks. Director Rand thought this was the best way to keep the place safe. What he didn't know was that by opening up all this land, he set up the entire settlement for failure. After the smoke had cleared and the entire area was free of all trees and vegetation to where you could see 3 miles in any direction, the chirping began. But they weren't bird chirps. It wasn't anything flying in the sky overhead. Director Rand started posting people to start shooting anything that tried to fly over them. They were small, very hard to see if you weren't trained, especially since they had the same type of coloration as the burnt ground around them that they crossed without being detected until the very, very last second. Now, these specific dinosaurs weren't large, maybe the size of a chicken, but their existence set red flags off everywhere. No one could understand how these specific dinosaurs existed, and what scared everyone even more was that they were swarming in the thousands. Velociraptors were jumping at the fences. They were climbing through despite being electrocuted. They were literally letting themselves be obliterated to let their brothers crawl in, and one by one, they swarmed into the camp. Soldiers were shooting, taking down as many of the velociraptors as they could, one by one, but for every single velociraptor they killed, 3 more appeared in its place, and they climbed the soldiers like trees. People who were caught by the velociraptors and brought down to the ground were bones in minutes. They swarmed everything like locusts. Director Rand realized that he couldn't use another atom cap on these, so instead he authorized the use of plasma weapons. One by one, beams of orange and blue shot out from plasma rifles, sweeping across the swarm of velociraptors. The plasma rifles were very effective at controlling this horde of velociraptors, but at least 15 people were mutilated, if not eaten alive. When the velociraptors realized they couldn't get near enough anymore to continue their feast, they backed off and fled. The damage had been done. People were gone, eaten alive in front of their friends. The entire complex was riddled with plasma damage. And just when they thought things couldn't get worse as they were trying to recover from the sudden attack of velociraptors, a low, ground-vibrating bellow erupted across the plains. And though they couldn't see it due to the distance, Director Rand had already got a visual of it from their scopes. And it was time for him to make the announcement. Thank you all for attending this meeting. I know this was very short notice, and I know you have a lot of questions. First, what happened? We know that we were attacked by a swarm of what we believe are velociraptors. Before any of you say it, yes, I know they're from the late Cretaceous. I went to school also. And that sound we heard an hour ago which shook the entire base? It was a Tyrannosaurus. I've been keeping this next piece of information very close to the chest until I could get a confirmation on it, but I believe I have. We're not in an alternate timeline. We're not in the Jurassic. We're not in the Cretaceous. We're not even in a timeline. We're stuck in what's called a time collapse. I know you all have questions, I'll try to explain it as best I can. A time collapse is essentially a black hole, but for time, specifically in regards to our Earth. Certain areas of our planet, land masses, time events, epochs, major cataclysmic events, all had certain parts of those moments brought into this time collapse through the wormhole we walk through. At one point, that wormhole was so big, it swallowed entire continents, and it was mobile. Rand Industries has been draining the entire Gulf of Mexico for 200 years for the sake of getting to this wormhole to come to the time collapse. That's how I came through here originally. With a small strike team, we made it through and we found the exit, which brought us out in Siberia. The videos that I showed you of my journeys through this time in the past were all true, but it wasn't an alternate timeline. It wasn't our past timeline. We're not in time. We are outside of time. The dinosaurs that were brought here by excess energy from cataclysmic events are just a tip of what is actually here in this time collapse. This time collapse isn't just a black hole for time. It's the end. It is the memory of things that once were. It is literally the memories of our planet that never got to be. Now, that Tyrannosaurus is smart enough to know that if it crosses into that 3-mile mark, something bad is going to happen to it. But we've got bigger problems. It felt like they were walking through soup. The forest was muggy and the humidity was bearing down on the group. It had only been a few hours since they started that day, but it already felt like years. Brandy Sue and Colonel Lazarus led the group through the dense foliage up the side of a mountain. Colonel Lazarus was well aware of Brandy Sue's Appalachian background and intentionally chose her to co-lead the expedition with him. This all came at the command of Director Rand, who ordered that 5 people go on this expedition. After driving through the barren wastes and making it to the largest forest that they'd seen yet, the group had to abandon their vehicles and go on foot. All of this for a possibility that may not even exist. So far, the group did really well to avoid most obstacles, and they stayed out of sight of the larger carnivores as they went. There was an incident, though, where they caught the attention of a pair of Deinonychus, but the group was ready this time, and those Deinonychus will probably never be eating again. After entering the forest, the group made it to the base of the mountain and made camp for the night in a secure location, but in the morning, it proved that climbing the mountain was a tall order, pun fully intended. Though the mountain wasn't a straight 90-degree angle, there were points where they had to climb, and as they climbed, they were constantly being circled by pteranodons. To their credit, they did have a cloaking device with them, so the pteranodons weren't able to see them the entire time that they were scaling the mountain. Although there were a couple moments where a hand would reach out too far or a foot would slip just beyond the edge of the device. The pteranodons noticed, and they landed in the rock faces around them, trying to hunt for the weird thing they saw, but luckily the group was able to get past them with little difficulty. The day of climbing finally came to an end as they reached the top of the mountain to find that it wasn't just a mountain, it was a cliffside. It plateaued and stretched for miles and miles and miles. And the forest stretched on, and as they made camp that night, that's when they began to first hear the low rumblings around them in the dark. Brandy Sue, with her Appalachian background, reminded everyone, don't go looking for that noise. It wants you to find it. Colonel Lazarus and the other members of the group heeded Brandy Sue's warning and didn't go searching for the noise. But as the night wore on, the low rumbling began to circle the encampment. But to Brandy Sue's credit and the fact that the camp was pretty well fortified, they remained safe for the night. As they traveled through the forest on the plateau the next day, the entire group had to vacate the ground and seek refuge in the trees as a stampede of velociraptors came through, very similar to the ones that had attacked the camp from the previous week. As far as they could tell, the velociraptors didn't seem to notice them as they passed by, but Colonel Lazarus did note that one of the velociraptors had a very interesting coloration in comparison to the other ones. Most of the velociraptors were brown or red, but the single velociraptor, no bigger than a chicken, just like its brothers and sisters, was yellow. The coloration of that velociraptor gave Colonel Lazarus pause. It reminded him of something, but he wasn't quite sure what. The stampede of tiny velociraptors subsided. The group descended from the trees and carried on their way. It was dusk when they heard the low rumbling again, yet this time it wasn't just a single source. There were three. In the darkness of the forest around the group, 3 pairs of glowing eyes reflected their flashlights back at them as they slowly circled them in the forest. They were low to the ground, possibly around knee to waist height. One of the members of the group decided that they couldn't handle it anymore and turned the lumens on their flashlight as bright as they could, up to 10,000. Colonel Lazarus cursed, "Stop, you idiot!" But it was too late. The brightness of the light showed the low form of a carnivorous dinosaur with a large sail on its back and a giant maw. Brandy Sue gasped, That's a goddamn Dimetrodon." All 3 Dimetrodons turned and charged. Colonel Lazarus grabbed Brandy Sue by the wrist and screamed, "We don't have time to figure out why it's here, just go!" The entire group ran. The Dimetrodons were fast, but the group was able to outpace them. Putting enough distance between them and the animals as they could, they were able to make it into a clearing and jump over a log to prep themselves for the attack that was about to happen. Colonel Lazarus and 2 of the other soldiers in the group took aim, waiting for the Dimetrodons to come cascading out of the forest toward them. But the Dimetrodons didn't come barreling through the forest like they expected. In fact, nothing happened for 5 minutes. It was quiet. Brandy Sue readied her pistol, unsure of what was going to happen, and whispered, "Lazarus, what the fuck is happening?" Colonel Lazarus scoffed and, without taking his eyes away from the tree line, said, "I don't know, but I have a bad feeling." And almost on cue, loud honking and screeches began to fill the air around them. Everyone in the group had their weapons ready now. All 5 people had their backs against each other, making a 5-point star so that way they could shoot as anything came at them from any direction. What they didn't expect was a giant raptor to come barreling through the trees, not at them, but around them. This raptor was huge. It was over 7 feet tall and almost 20 feet long, covered in feathers from tip to tail. This giant raptor circled around the group, barking and honking and screeching, and as it did, other giant raptors just as big and just as long began to follow it in formation, circling around the group. First 2, then 4, then 7. Someone in the group called out, "What the fuck are those?" "Those are Utah raptors," Brandy Sue responded as they kept circling. An 8th, a 9th, and a 10th Utah raptor entered the circle, and one by one everyone in the group gasped. There were people riding them. The people riding aloft the Utah raptors began to whistle and click, and the entire circle stopped and faced the group. The 3 riders and the entire group of Utah raptors faced down the group, yet no one moved. That's when the people of the group heard it, the low boom of footsteps as something big began to approach. It crashed through the foliage, a gigantic Tyrannosaurus. It opened its mighty maw and bellowed, sending a shockwave of pure sound in every direction. The group flinched, expecting the monster to charge, but it stood still, and that's when they looked up to see a single person sitting aloft the back of the mighty Tyrannosaurus. A man was riding the Tyrannosaurus, and from where they stood, they could see a slow grin spreading across his face before he called down and said, "You're a long way from home, aren't you?"